Welcome to Barbecue Today. I'm your host, Eric Riches. So, how do you get flavor deep inside a cut of meat? With barbecue, we use rubs, but that only gets the surface. To get flavor down inside a large cut of pork, we want to use an injection. So we're going to go over a basic pork injection recipe, and then we're going to talk about how to get your pork properly injected. When it comes to making great barbecue, there's a lot of ways we get flavor in there. Most notably, rubs and sauces. But sauces go on last, rubs go on first, but this covers the surface. When we want to get flavor down inside meat, we're going to use an injection. Now, this gives us a lot more than just flavor. We're adding moisture into the meat, which will help keep it from drying out while we're cooking. We're also adding ways of tenderizing the meat. So a lot of times we use vinegar, but we also go with the basic flavor profiles. We're going to want salt, and we're going to want sweet. And one of the great secrets is a little Worcestershire sauce. That adds that meaty flavor to things. So I've got a nice little pork butt here, and about a third of a cup of apple jelly. You can use apple juice, you can use water. I mean, there are very basic injections, which are water, salt, sugar, and a couple of seasonings. Now, another trick I like to use is I like to take my barbecue rub. This is one I mixed up earlier, and this is the rub I'm going to be putting on the pork, but I'm also going to be putting in the injection. Now, when we're doing injections, we typically have a little needle, and that liquid needs to get through this needle. You can buy a lot of different styles of meat injectors. You don't need to get anything too fancy. They have really big ones capable of handling a lot of capacity, so if you're doing lots of barbecue all at once, those are helpful, but I just have a real basic unit right now. So like I said, I've got a third of a cup of apple jelly. Now, I warmed this up in my microwave just to get it to a nice liquid state. And I'm going to add to this a third of a cup of my cider vinegar. So this is going to be about 2/3 of a cup of total liquid here. I'm going to take one of these and do a little stir. You need your injection to be in a very liquid state, and you need everything that goes into it to be fine enough to fit through our needle. To this, I'm then going to add, 2 tablespoons of salt. This is a nice coarse salt. It's the kind of salt that I use for my rubs. We want a good salt content because we're going to get this salt right inside the meat. It's going to really help fill that out. Now, I'm then going to add 2 tablespoons of my rub. Now, my rub has salt, it has sugar, and it has seasonings in it, but it's the flavor profile I'm looking for. This is the rub I'm putting on the outside. Now, if I were to make a barbecue sauce to go with this pork, I would also use this rub in that sauce. That way you have that consistent flavor that goes on through the whole process of flavoring your barbecue. Now I'm going to add a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. This is that umami flavor that really enhances. It's got a very earthy, deep flavor, and that's going to enhance the meatiness. After all, this is meat. We're making barbecue. It should taste like meat. Now, we use a lot of apple in these sort of things with pork. Apple is a perfect accompaniment to pork. It enhances the porkiness of it. So you find that all the time, and that's why apple cider vinegar is so commonly used in pork barbecue. I want to make sure that I get all my salt and the sugar that's in my rub to dissolve and get this to a nice liquid state. So that's my injection. I've got about a cup here, which is probably more than I'm going to need for a typical pork, but about half a cup is probably going to be enough, but it's always better to have a little too much than not enough. So your typical pork butt, which is now the most common cut used in pork barbecue for making pulled pork and such, is a very rectangular block of meat. Now it has a bone. It's a big flat wide bone. Runs through this section here. It's the shoulder blade. Now that's going to prevent us from getting to some sections of the pork butt. I'm going to start on one end. I'm going to go down, not all the way through. And I'm going to squeeze gently and slowly while I raise the needle back out of the meat a bit. You should see it kind of puff up around there. Then I'm going to move to another bit, get down in deep, and slowly draw it up as I inject. Just kind of fill up like a little bit of a balloon. Now you're going to get some leaking out. That's perfectly fine. When you get to that bone section, get some of that injection down around that bone area. And get around it as best as you can. So that's probably good. I mean, you'll get an idea about how much it'll take. We'll just mop this up a little bit, put on our rub, and get the smoker ready. So that's really about it. We've got that extra moisture in there. We've got our extra salt and seasonings that will cook into the pork while we smoke, help keep it moist. Injections are a great way Injections are great for any large cut of meat. You can get that flavor deep down inside. You're going to add that extra moisture. The vinegars that we use, well, it's going to add a tanginess flavor here, which is something that is traditionally used with pork. But you can go any route you want to go. There are injections that don't use any vinegars. There are injections that will add fats. You can use melted butter. You can use oils, olive oil, or anything like that. I'm going to put a link down below in the description, show you some of my favorite recipes for pork injections. When you are making pork barbecue, this is one of the great pitmaster secrets. Not much of a secret these days, but certainly worth using. There are a lot of different types of injectors. I've got a bunch, but when I'm just doing one pork butt, I don't need anything too complicated. You can typically find them online under 10 bucks, or you can spend up to $100 for big professional units. I mean, they even have electrically powered ones these days. So get yourself a nice injector. Make sure that it's got good holes in the needle and holes on both sides. That way you get that spread around in there and you don't get clogging. That's why it's also important to avoid using a lot of large herbs or things like that. If you've got big chunks of rosemary and something like that in your mixture, it's going to block up the needle. It's just going to cause you endless frustration. Make sure it's a liquid that's going to be very liquid. And then put your rub on, take it out the smoker, you're good to go. So my pork butt is smoking away. Probably run about 8 to 10 hours. We'll see how it works out. I hope this was informative. Injections are a great way to get flavor, a little extra moisture inside large cuts of meat. They can be simple, they can be complicated. As long as it'll fit through the needle, you're good to go. Like I said, I'll put a link to some of my favorite recipes down below. You can check those out, and you'll find a few extra tips in there. On that idea of taking the flavor through the process of your rub, your injection, your sauce, if you've got some of that injection solution, that injection marinade left over, when you're done, take it, put it in the fridge, cook it up with the sauce you make to go with your barbecue. You're extending that flavor. It's going to have a nice tartness to it, so you can adjust the flavors accordingly. That's one of the great strategies of successful barbecue, is keeping that consistency all the way through. I see people who will use radically different rubs than sauces, and the flavors tend to clash and they don't match up very well. You can always adjust the sweetness, the heat. You can always add extra flavors to it, but having that base line of that flavor profile is a really great way to, produce good barbecue. I hope you found this informative, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. And if you subscribe, well, you'll get notifications the next time I produce a video, because there's a lot more to talk about. I will see you next time.